The American fast food industry has not had a shakeout like this since the early 1990s recession. 12 chains that were household names a decade ago are either in bankruptcy, closing hundreds of locations, or watching their customer base evaporate faster than any single quarter of bad press can explain. Number 1, Red Lobster. Red Lobster filed for Chapter 11, bankruptcy protection in May 2024 after years of declining guest counts, a disastrous endless shrimp promotion that the company later publicly acknowledged had contributed directly to a significant operating loss in the quarter it ran, and a sale-leaseback arrangement on its restaurant properties from years earlier that locked the company into rent obligations it could no longer service as revenue fell. The company emerged from bankruptcy with a reduced footprint of roughly 500 locations from its previous high of over 700, and the new ownership has been attempting to reposition the chain as a less frequent special occasion destination, rather than competing on value, a significant shift from how the brand built its customer base over 5 decades. The sale-leaseback arrangement proved fatal because it removed the ability to renegotiate occupancy costs outside of a formal bankruptcy process, which ultimately became the only path available. Number 2, TGI Fridays. TGI Fridays filed for Chapter 11. Bankruptcy in November 2024, closing 86 locations on the same day the filing was announced, a one-day closure event that affected thousands of employees across the country. The chain had been struggling with a business model that sits in a no-man's land between fast casual and full-service dining, without the speed of one or the quality perception of the other, at a price point that many customers decided was no longer competitive with alternatives that had emerged on both ends of the market. Its international franchise business remains significantly larger than the remaining U.S. footprint, meaning the American version of a chain with global name recognition is now a shadow of its former scale. The simultaneous closure announcement gave employees, landlords, and suppliers no warning, and questions about how long the situation had been deteriorating remain unanswered in public filings. Number 3, Denny's. Denny's announced a plan to close approximately 150 locations through 2024 and into 2025 as part of a restructuring effort the company described as optimizing its portfolio by exiting underperforming markets. The challenge facing Denny's is structural rather than cyclical. The 24-hour diner model it built over 70 years depends on late-night and breakfast traffic that has been captured by a combination of fast food breakfast offerings, delivery app options that make late-night dining accessible without leaving home, and a demographic shift away from the sit-down diner experience by younger consumers who grew up with delivery as a default rather than an alternative. Even the locations that remain open have been reporting declining average check sizes as customers order less per visit. The delivery app shift is the most permanent headwind Denny's faces because the late-night diner experience was never about the food alone, and that experience does not survive a delivery order. Number 4, Hooters. Hooters filed for Chapter 11. Bankruptcy protection in April 2024 and closed dozens of locations, including some that had operated for over 30 years, while the parent company simultaneously attempted to negotiate new franchise agreements that would shift more financial responsibility onto franchisees and less onto corporate operations. The chain's challenges go beyond the general headwinds facing casual dining because its entire brand identity was built around a specific type of dining experience that has become significantly less attractive to a broad customer base over the past decade, as social attitudes around the concept shifted, creating a brand equity problem that price adjustments and menu innovation cannot easily solve. Any change significant enough to broaden the customer base simultaneously alienates the loyal segment that remained, leaving the chain without a viable middle ground between the two outcomes. Number 5, Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut's largest U.S. franchise operator, E.G. America, filed for bankruptcy protection in the mid-2020s and announced the closure of hundreds of Pizza Hut locations as part of that process, representing one of the most significant single-operator collapses in the history of the franchise model. The Pizza Hut brand itself, owned by Yum! Brands, continues operating through other franchise operators and corporate locations, but the closure of hundreds of locations from a single franchise group significantly reduced the chain's footprint in major markets. The pizza delivery category has become intensely competitive with both independent local operators and delivery app-enabled restaurants that are not traditional pizza chains, compressing margins across the segment. As delivery platforms have taken an increasing share of each transaction, the margin per delivery has declined to the point where many pizza franchise operators have found continued investment difficult to justify. Number 6, Burger King. Burger King's U.S. operations have underperformed its own parent company's other brands, including Popeyes and Tim Hortons, for multiple consecutive years, and Restaurant Brands International has publicly acknowledged the need for significant franchisee financial assistance, remodeling investment, and operational overhaul in the domestic U.S. market. The company launched a multi-year revitalization plan that involves closing underperforming locations rather than attempting to turn them around, and the gap in same-store sales performance between Burger King US and McDonald's, which competes in the same core value proposition space, has been a recurring topic in investor communications for several years running. The gap between Burger King and McDonald's in same-store sales performance has persisted long enough that analysts no longer describe it as temporary or weather or macro-related. That equity gap has now persisted across multiple economic cycles without closing. Number 7, Subway. Subway, which once held the distinction of having more locations worldwide than any other restaurant chain, has been experiencing a net reduction in its U.S. store count as the post-pandemic operating environment made the economics of its franchise model more challenging for individual operators. The chain was sold to Roark Capital, a private equity firm, in a 2023 transaction that valued the business significantly below prior expectations. And the new ownership has been working through operational and branding changes while managing a franchise system where individual operator profitability has been a persistent concern that Subway acknowledged in public statements about franchisee support programs. The scale of the challenge is significant because even modest per-unit improvements require execution across a franchise system of tens of thousands of individually operated locations. That math is difficult to change quickly, even with strong brand support from the parent company. Number 8, Applebee's. Applebee's parent company Dine Brands has been closing both Applebee's and IHOP locations as part of a broader effort to reduce the total count of underperforming restaurants in both chain systems and focus investment on higher volume locations in stronger markets. The casual dining segment that Applebee's occupies has been under sustained pressure from fast casual competitors that have captured the middle market between fast food convenience and sit-down service quality. While Applebee's has attempted to compete primarily on promotional pricing and bar-forward marketing that has had inconsistent results in driving traffic relative to the promotional spending required. Retraining customers to pay full price after years of discount-driven traffic is one of the most structurally difficult problems in the restaurant business once the habit is established. That behavioral shift, once established in a customer base, rarely reverses on its own. Number 9, Jack in the Box. Jack in the Box reported declining same-store sales for multiple consecutive quarters going into 2025 and went through a CEO transition during a period when the chain's West Coast concentration left it particularly exposed to minimum wage increases in California and other states that significantly raised labor costs for franchise operators in its core markets. The chain has been attempting a menu innovation strategy while simultaneously managing franchisee relations in a system where operators in high labor cost markets have been vocal about margin pressure, and the combination of cost headwinds and sales weakness created a challenging environment for the incoming leadership to navigate. The California minimum wage increase to $20 per hour for fast food workers created a concentrated cost shock that Jack in the Box's West Coast concentration made unavoidable. Number 10, Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel attempted a significant brand repositioning effort beginning in 2023 that involved interior redesigns, a more diverse menu, and an attempt to attract younger diners to a chain that had historically depended on an older, more rural customer base for the majority of its traffic. The repositioning generated criticism from its existing core customers who represented the reliable repeat visitor segment that had sustained the chain through previous downturns without generating sufficient new traffic from the younger demographic the changes were designed to attract. The company reported significant same-store sales declines and replaced leadership as the repositioning failed to produce the traffic recovery that had been projected. The core customers they had built the business on left when the experience changed, and the younger customers the changes were designed to attract did not arrive in the volumes the strategy required. Number 11, Noodles & Company. Noodles & Company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in June 2024 and closed approximately 20% of its locations in the same process, citing a combination of rising food and labor costs, a value perception problem as menu prices increased, and a competitive casual dining environment where its noodle-focused menu concept found it increasingly difficult to maintain customer frequency against both broad casual dining competitors and fast casual alternatives with similar check averages. The chain emerged from bankruptcy with a reduced footprint and a new financial structure, but the underlying traffic trends that led to the filing had not reversed as of the restructuring. Menu specificity made it harder to respond to cost pressures with the broad menu adjustments that less focused concepts can use to manage margins without alienating regulars. That structural rigidity is part of what made a bankruptcy filing ultimately unavoidable. Number 12, Steak & Shake. Steak & Shake, which once operated hundreds of company-owned diners known for thin, crispy burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes, converted nearly its entire company-owned restaurant system to a franchise partner model beginning around 2020, in which the person running the restaurant essentially functions as a licensed operator rather than a traditional employee. The conversion closed the majority of traditional Steak & Shake locations during the transition period, and the reopenings under the new model have been gradual, leaving large gaps in markets that previously had multiple locations. The long-term viability of the new model remains unproven, and the brand's visibility has declined significantly in markets where locations have not yet reopened. The brand still has meaningful name recognition in its traditional markets, but recognition without accessible locations is not a business model that sustains traffic or franchisee investment. That gap between name recognition and physical availability continues to widen rather than close. The pattern connecting all 12 is the same. They are caught between fast food that wins on speed and price and fast casual that wins on quality perception, with costs rising faster than they can raise prices without losing customers. Subscribe for the next video on which chains are growing.